Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Coming up.
Most people are band-aids when what we really need are people to be medicine. You're always on a line, so there's a line you can't cross, and that hit me harder than anything else.
You're listening to The Hurt Locker, a podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. Today, we are pleased to welcome comedian John Devlin.
What's happening?
I'm good.
All good, brother. All good.
All good. Can I be honest with you?
Yeah, man.
You looked a little bit nervous at the beginning. Let's touch on something.
I find myself a lot, man. I don't know if it's the same with yourself, but recently I sort of only started this comedy this comedy stuff in the last sort of 3 years. But it all started off a concept that I would be a very naturally sort of anxious person. You know, a lot of the time I would face I used to face a lot of situations in my past where I guess the best way to sort of term it would be like to run away from something. So I wasn't really big for like sort of controversy or anything like that there. I would never sort of come into something and be like, I could 100% do that. And I remember COVID hit. COVID was 4 years ago now. I remember COVID hit and I was like, if I don't do something now, if I don't start doing something now, I feel like I'm going to just exist for the rest of my life. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
So I love to do things now that make me feel really sort of nervous or anxious. You know, that sort of way. I love throwing myself right into the fire of things. I think it's the best way to build up ammunition against sort of your negative part of your brain. You know what I mean? It kind of, anytime your brain starts to tell you stuff like you can't do something, you have something to fight back with. You get what I mean?
Absolutely. So I always talk about COVID and lockdown and how collectively, one, we don't talk about it, but two, it was a collective trauma for a lot of people. But on the flip side of that, some people experience positivity as a result of it. For part of lockdown, particularly the early parts, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know it wasn't like that for everybody, but for me, I loved working from home. Maybe I was just fortunate to have a job working from home, but I did that to a degree, or I was a key worker. But it sounds to me like I'm going to use the blues guitarist Robert Johnson. It sounds like you were at a crossroads, and COVID was your crossroads.
I had this weird apocalyptic thought whenever COVID started kicking off. You know, the first 6 days, 7 days, or whatever, when they were really pushing that concept of like people are dying and that's it. You know what I mean? We have no response for this. This is it. I genuinely, there was a week where I thought, this is it. This is the end. You know what I mean? Like, we're done. This is the proper. I remember everyone was told you had to stay inside, but I had to go to the shop to actually buy fucking toilet roll. Because it was like,
I'm past that.
I'm past it. So I remember thinking to myself, like, right, I need to go down and grab all the stuff, and start. I don't know. I'm going to be fighting with people in the streets. There'll be like riots and all. But I remember I live in a really small town in Northern Ireland, and I remember going into the town, and man, it was the weirdest, most isolating thought I've ever had. There was just nobody there. It really felt like I had, I really felt like I was just in a void of nothingness. You know what I mean? Like, there was just, as if every human being had just been erased from the planet, and it was only myself. And I remember just walking up the town and thinking to myself, like, this is it. And that was the snap moment for all this. I think it was just realizing in that moment, I was like, I have nothing to fear, really, if this is it. Like, if this is the last time, if these are like the last days on Earth, like, what's the point in worrying about anything? You know, like, I may as well go and do something really, really stupid and see how it works out. You know, it was strange, man. It was a really, really weird time, COVID. It was like, it was all in sort of stages and transitions, and a lot of my content sort of blew up over COVID, or at least over on TikTok. It did. I don't know. It was a strange feeling, would be the best way to describe it. To just know that, like, if I defined it as liberating, would that make sense? Like, I didn't feel like there was much to panic about anymore. There was a great quote I heard, I remember way back, and I haven't been able to forget it. And I still don't forget it now, even when I've started doing stand-up and doing all the things that I'm actually terrified of. You know, I've terrible stage fright. So I really feel like that's the way forward to go for that. But I remember hearing this beautiful quote about fear being a mile wide, but an inch deep. So, you know, a lot of people will look at fear and think to themselves, like, that's an impossible task. But when they step into it, they realize it's not as bad as they think it's going to be, you know? And I've been trying to live up to that as much as I can.
You spoke at the beginning of this about, and I'm going to use my word, being at the crossroads of COVID. And yet, Tim, our producer, tells me with your TikToks, etc., you've had 3 million people watch what your content, 2.5 million. You've got 80,000 followers. I don't know about you, but for me, I think the paranoia and everything else would be setting in with 2.5 million. How have you coped with that? Because that's a different type of anxiety, isn't it?
So during COVID, when it was all kicking off, it didn't feel like real. You know, a lot of it felt like I was kind of playing a game or something. You know, it was kind of like just like a little fun experiment for anything else. And then I remember lockdown started to ease, and I live in a really, really small place. You know, like Northern Ireland's tiny.
Yes.
And all my content centered around Northern Ireland. It doesn't go any further than that, and I'm proud of that. You know, it's one of my it's one of the things I'm really happy that it actually happened that way, because we're a very underrepresented nation of people, because it's so divided. So you have a lot of people who will pick one side, be it nationalist, a very nationalist community, or a very unionist community. And I took a very staunch approach of just, instead of picking one side, going straight down the middle. So a lot of my content, where I decided I would take the piss out of both sides equally, so that everyone was included in the joke, so nobody was left out, you know, that sort of way. But yeah, the weirdest part of it, man, was going sort of when lockdown started to ease and everything started to settle. I remember the first time somebody recognized me on the streets, and that was like people can't really figure it out, but like I remember the time I just needed to piss. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't thinking about nothing else. So like I was dying to find a toilet somewhere, and I had this guy kind of stop me, like, "Oh, God, you're the guy from TikTok. I love your videos." Like, yeah, man, thank you so much for all your support. I'm not trying to be rude or nothing. I just need the, you know, I gotta piss, man. I gotta piss real bad. You know? So it is sort of, I don't know, I try not to think about it too much, the idea of having like that many people sort of watching. And also I think seeing today's world and the way that everything's going, and with sort of social media and all the rest, a lot of it's sort of based around that. A lot of it's based around like they put value to the number. So it's like I value myself based off how many followers that I have, or how many likes that I have, or how many clicks that I can get on a certain thing. And I don't know, there's something very artificial about that and something not really real about that. So I try not to think about too much about the implications of having that many people watching me, you know, all the day. But it's a part of it feels great. A part of it feels like it's an accomplishment. And then the other part of it feels like, how do you hold on to this kind of success? How do you keep riding the lightning, you know?
So you deem it a success. How do you hold on to it?
When I first started, it wasn't about doing it for lots of views. I create my content with 5 people in mind, 5 friends. And then I've kind of figured out from that there's 5,000 people who are just like the people that I'm creating content for. And that sort of, so it all kind of happens by accident in a sense. Holding on to success is different, because it's not about that. It's more about doing it to prove to myself that I can do it and can still do it. Holding on to the idea that I'm not sort of not bound by the idea that I'm just going to live very averagely, if that makes sense.
Ooh, do you mean Michael McIntyre safe?
I kind of. How would you define? Like, I just think that like the whole world is kind of shackled by the way that other people think. Does that make
Yes,
sense? You're
it
like a
does.
lot of people are shackled by the way that other people think, and I'm trying my best to be liberated from that. How much can I not be the best at something? How can I be the only? How can I be the only John Devlin? You know what I mean? Not the best. I don't care about being number one. I care about being somebody that's like the content that I make is only recognizable to me. Do you know what I mean?
About being unique but true to
Yeah.
yourself.
And I think I don't want to be like anybody else. I think that's important. I think most people die before they're dead. You know?
Most people settle
Yeah, that's
before
it.
they die.
Most people just end up existing. And that makes me sad. It's not a statement of like it's not a statement of pride. It's a genuine sympathy that I have. I do my best in any time that I talk to somebody to kind of give them that edge to tell them that like going out and getting the job's great and doing all that there is great. But there is some people in the world that are not designed for that, and they're meant to be different, you know, and the world's going to consistently try and tell them that they need to be the same. They kind of need to conform to the way that society wants them to be. But the truth is that the real happiness, if you can call it that, is in the chaos. It's in the storm, you know?
Absolutely.
But you know my problem is I'll ramble for so long that I forget the
No,
question.
it's okay. Ramble away. That's what we're here
All right.
for. And you said that a lot of your content, your subject matter, the things that you
Mhm.
focus on are based on where you've grown up, are
Yeah.
based on your surroundings, your environment, etc.
Mhm.
I know you talk about being unique and having your own original
Mhm.
content, but is there anybody that influences you, or is there any comedians or any creatives within the industry that you say, you know what, I wouldn't mind
Aye.
a little bit of their stardust?
Again, it's one of them weird things where it's like comparisons are like the death of drive. The moment you start comparing yourself to other people, you end up stuck in wishing that you had what they had, and
Yes.
not sort of taking time to appreciate how far you've came with something. You know? Yeah, there's definitely comedians that I look up to in my field. At home, there's a lot of ones. There's greats around here like Colin Gaddis and Shane Todd. Going further out of the field, there's a great Irish comedian called Tommy Tiernan. I love him. And if we're going
Yes.
across the UK, like people like Kevin Bridges,
Yes.
you know, the likes of that are all phenomenal. I think I would aspire to be as funny as them, but I don't. I try not to like, you know, sort of look at their successes and go, "Oh God, I wish I had that." You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So tell me, you've told me you're 29.
Yeah.
What was growing up like in Northern Ireland and a
Ooh,
small town village for you?
it's fun, man. It's fun in the really not fun way. It's a bit like I don't know where you grew up, Yanka, but if I said to you that everybody just grows up, gets a job, gets married, has kids, and then dies, that's the sort of the system for life over here. Um, and it was tough because I grew up a bit weird. You know, I grew up definitely into more like I hate it now, man. I hate it now, right? The kids these days, like I grew up as a comic book nerd, a comic book nerd, a Star Wars nerd, Lord of the Rings. All that stuff was that was my go-to thing. I never liked sports. I was never into anything like that there. See fucking kids these days, that's all they talk about. Marvel, they talk about things they got there. I would have been the king of school back in the day, man. But nowadays, like but back in my day, all everybody ever wanted to talk about was like football or sports or something like that there. So I never really like fit it in. I had a fairly isolated childhood with just a handful of friends that I could chat to every so often. I had to deal with a bit of bullying when I was growing up. That kind of heavy-handed bullying that was very physical. And I wasn't a man for fighting back. I never seen the point in it. You know, if you throw fists at someone, you degrade yourself to their level, is what I kind of always had in mind.
When did you learn that? Because for me, I was a
First,
fighter growing
you were
up.
a fighter?
I fucking hated bullies.
I remember I had this one kid, I'll not name him, I had this one kid
Oh,
in
name
school.
him. Name him.
But this one kid in school, he used to be very heavy-handed and kind of very physical, and he loved to demean people. You know, he really loved to like bring people down to his standard or his world. You know, so that he can make you out to be the idiot and kind of hide the fact that he was the idiot. You know, I remember he used to come up to me and just gut punch me in the stomach. You know, really, really like a proper whinge, and he would do that every chance he got. And I remember coming home with like bruises, you know, all around my ribs and things like that. There are points. I remember at one point I learned hitting him back didn't like I hit him back once and I squared him clean in the jaw, and it was a beautiful shot. You know what I mean? It was a Mike Tyson-esque shot. You know what I mean?
Put that on the shelf. Put that one on the shelf.
It was slow motion, you know what I mean? And I socked him real hard, and I felt angry, and then I felt calm right after that, and then I felt like nothing changed.
Tell me about I just saw you then as you were just reliving that moment. It was like tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Tell me about that moment of that anger.
Yeah, it was I don't remember much of it, man. It was a bit like you said yourself, you've been in fights. So like I seen Red, and I remember he said something about a family member of mine that I wasn't too happy about, a vulnerable family member of mine. And then he'd see like anything he said to me, I was like, cool, you know, fuck you, I don't really care. But when you bring in other people, I was like, right, okay, you've took it a step too far. And I don't remember much. I just remember swinging, and I remember the feeling of like the strike, and then people got involved and it got split up, you know, that sort of way. And I got pulled away. But I remember right after that, I remember when the anger started to dissipate and I started to settle again, I remember walking away from it and I didn't feel better. I just felt empty, and that I would have to deal with the problem again tomorrow. So it's weird, you know, and that's kind of the moment I realized that like I had this sort of revelation to think to myself, like I just stooped to his level. There was nothing there I have to try and rise above these moments, or else I'm going to end up being just like them. The irony is, though, the beautiful thing about life is that I don't believe in karma, but I do believe that at certain points, whatever you want to call it, God or the universe or whatever, I haven't figured that bit out yet. Whatever it is has a sense of humor too. Because recently I found out that that same bully now follows me on Instagram. You know what I mean? And I had a message from him.
Have you got a message for him now?
Yeah, I had a message from him just saying like, "Oh, hey man, loving your stuff. Like, you know, loving remember when we grew up, we had all them fun times." And I had a lovely reply, just being like, "Sorry, man, you're gonna have to remind me who you are." You know, like
wow.
So
wow.
Life's a funny way of turning things around, don't you? And it's sometimes it can take minutes or months or weeks or years, but revenge is not up to us, I don't think.
No,
it shouldn't be left up to us. We're too primal when it comes to it. We want something. I think there's always something else at work that will seek that justice for us, you know. The way that life works, the way that if you just try to do good and don't try to step on anybody on your way to the top of something, and you kind of take your best shot, and it's you versus you and not you versus the world, or you versus the universe.
You versus you. I like that.
It's not about how much you can do to better yourself. Sometimes it's just about what you can do, or how you deal with the bad thing that's happening to you, you know?
You know, can I be honest with you? You say you're 29.
Yeah.
I just got a little feeling that you've been there before because we've only been on this chat for a short period of time, and
Mhm.
some of the wisdom that's coming out of your mouth,
Yeah.
I'm going to run with some of that myself.
Yeah, yeah, man.
I'm going to run with some of that myself.
Yeah.
So thank
I
you for
appreciate
sharing.
that.
Family life, growing up.
Yeah.
Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, I had an older brother who was always funnier than me. You know, he's somebody that had to prove something. You know what I mean? He was never bad to me. He was always like, he always kind of, he was a good brother. He is still a good brother, you know? But he was always funnier than me, and I could never match his wit. So now I get to tell that fucker that I've got, I've got 80,000 people who think I'm funnier than him. You know?
How how's he taking your success?
He loves it too.
Yeah.
His he's got no filter at all. He loves ripping the piss out of me. So every time I see him now, he's like, "Yeah, man, you're doing great. I love seeing it." But what I really can't wait for is when you develop like a crack addiction and like, you're like falling apart. I'll come to you there. I'll start so he has a really good sense of grounding me, you know.
Funny, funny.
But he's a good man. I love him to death. He's got a really good sense of humor, and he's somebody that I looked up to a lot when I was growing up. You know, that sort of way. He's always the center of attention. He was always that thing that I never had, which was that confidence. You know, he always had that false. I don't know if it was false confidence or real confidence, but he always had that confidence around being social and talking to people, and it was always something that I admired and something that I always wanted. So I think I've figured it out. I think I'm good at talk. I've gotten better at talking to people now in my late 20s than I ever have before. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Except for women, you know, but hey, what can you do?
What can you do? What can you do? I was going to say on that note of your brother and that, if that time does materialize and you've got a crack habit, tell your brother to come on with you and we'll do a podcast again. Okay.
He would love that. He would love that. Yeah. You wouldn't have an hour-long podcast. You would have 5-hour-long roast of me.
So tell me about family.
There's a great quote Jimmy Carr came out with one time about comedians, and I never realized it until he said it. One thing he said, he always asks comedians when he first meets them is, which family member was sick? You know what I mean? Like which one of your family members was sick, or I think it was which one of your parents was sick. And I never realized until I've gotten into the world of comedy, but that's far more real than I've ever considered it to be, because funny people have to be funny for a reason. Like, you know, you have to figure it out. So I haven't like this is going back a bit, you know what I mean? But I had a very sick I had a very sick dad and a very sick father for a long while. I think he's getting, you know, things are going well now, he's getting better. But that was tough, and a lot of that sort of was around the COVID times as well. And yeah, man, you gotta sometimes you have to be the laugh at the funeral. You know, sometimes you have to be the person who makes it so that everybody else is feeling just a little bit better in a really bad time. And I think a lot of what I've been doing lately, like, again, I want to reiterate that things have gotten a lot better recently, but a lot of the time trying to be funny is something that comes natural, because growing up you had to be funny, especially in this country, I think, as well, because we're all very negative people some of the time, you know. I have a really fucking hard-headed mum, you know, who would never like let me away with anything, you know, like regardless, but not in a bad way. You know, it was just she'd be very quick to humorous anger. You know, like something that you would end up she would get so flustered about something so small that it would make you laugh.
Does she keep you grounded?
Aye, definitely, or at least she tries her best to. You know, I think my mom, the best way to describe my mom is like she would try and steal your thunder as much as you can. I remember the first time I had 50,000 followers, she was like, "Yeah, but did you not see Facebook this week?" I was like, "What do you mean, Ma?" She was like, "On the bingo page, I am the main person. I am the main person on the bingo page." And I was like, "That's class, Ma." And I swear to God, she never fucked up about it for the whole night. I took my entire, you know, I was trying to have an emotional moment, be like, "Ma, look what I've done." She's like, "Aye, but fuck you, because look what I have. I'm literally the queen of bingo. I don't think she ever will understand sort of all this and what the modern world is and how technology and all is very like she's the sort of person who doesn't have any kind of social media, so she doesn't really get the whole push or whatever. But I think she's starting to figure out that it's got a bit of an implication to it. Things are going well, So
how have your parents been with your success?
yeah, they've been like I said, I think it's been difficult for them to kind of get it and understand. I think it's weirder for them when because my content reaches weird people. Like it reaches like usually you have an audience base, and a certain age group or something. For some reason, mine spikes quite a bit. Like it'll go from people who are 15, 16 to like people who are 55. Like it goes completely up and down. And I've had like really random, like she's had her friends and bingo asked her about me and how I'm doing and stuff. And she has no fucking clue why that's happening. Like she's just completely confused, But it's been fun, man. I think they're happy for me in their own way. They wouldn't know how to express it, but that's just being Irish or Northern Irish,
That's interesting. They wouldn't know how to express it.
They wouldn't know how to say it out loud, but that's not the sort of people we are. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, so tell me then, the meat to the bone, as it were.
Yeah.
What is affection then?
Ooh, that's a good one.
What is expressing one's emotions?
Over here, you don't get a lot of well done, son. You're doing really well, blah, blah, blah. You don't get a lot of that. But in a weird way, I think growing up, you're showing it in a different light. Over here, a lot of its actions speak louder than words, that sort of way. So the way that I think the way that parenting sort of, it isn't maybe so much now, this is maybe the older way that it was. But the way that it was like a showing of how much they would do for you, even because we never grew up rich by any standard. We were very, very much in the working class, So like if we got, maybe we wouldn't have got iPhones for Christmas, but we would have got what we asked for because we knew that what we asked for was definitely within a budget. We understood that sort of stuff, that sort of way.
Yeah.
And we take pride in really small things. My mom would make me a fucking frozen pizza from Tesco's, and she would be like, you wouldn't get that in a fucking restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, and my response to that often is like, because it wouldn't fucking pass industry standards, man. So a lot of it, I think, over here is just show, don't tell. And there isn't a lot of verbal. You'll get that a lot if you talk to any Northern Irish person about their upbringing. So they all know that their parents really care about them, but they never really said it. They just know. It's like an intrinsic thing,
Okay. But let me. I'm thinking.
Yeah, please ask me.
I'm thinking about the backdrop where your parents have come from as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also thinking about you growing up in school, being bullied by your newest follower, etc.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about in that time for you, because I heard the word lonely. Where does a kid who's being bullied in school go to for that support, that reassurance?
There wasn't really a place, Like, don't get me wrong, there was a point that got bad enough where I had to sort of talk to my parents about it, that sort of way. And they were very supportive, 100%. They were definitely. I think I always talk about my dad. Like my dad had this. My dad's very religious, but he found religion after a boxing match. You know what I mean? He had hit a guy and sent him into the next dimension. They didn't think the guy was going to wake up. And in that moment, he said he always found God or he found whatever. Now I still haven't had that moment myself, but from then he never preached violence. So when I was growing up, he never taught me to. I was always taught to kind of not fight back with fists, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But I think a lot of sort of my growing up, I had to figure out the fun in life through the chaos. I had to figure out where the small inklings of fun were. It wasn't a traditional sort of childhood where like, you had a whole group of friends and everybody had fun and everybody was doing all the, the great things. And like where I grew up, man, was bored as fuck. You know, like there was nothing to do. There was no place for us to go. Most kids turned to like drinking and drugs, you know, that sort of way.
And you didn't?
No, at least not then. Yeah, when I grew up, I when I grew up, I ended up with the first girlfriend I ever had was a super conservative Christian girl. So like, man, you gotta impress, you know what I mean? Like you can't be running about with the guys, you know, having a few drinks or whatever. You gotta be going to church or something, you know, like showing up for Sunday, you know what I mean? Like it was a tough one. So I had a funny year and a half there where I was playing a real character role, you know, like I was real, man. I was like if I told you, I read the Bible for not finding God, but for finding, you know, my trying to find a chance, you know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean.
I didn't realize that you couldn't, you know, like there was no pickup lines in the Bible, you know, unfortunately. But yeah, so I had that. I feel like I had a bit of an isolated childhood where for a short period there was nobody really that I could turn to, and then I found a decent group of friends, a small group but a very decent group of friends who were very much would go through the same things that I did, and all of our collective chaotic lives created a great story for all of us to talk about, you know, that sort of way.
And they're still your friends now?
Yeah, I wouldn't drop them for nobody, you know. A lot of people who kind of know me would say a lot of things like, oh, don't forget us when you're famous. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but you didn't care too much when I wasn't famous, you know. I wouldn't. Conor McGregor said something really, really that hit me a while ago, but I wouldn't eat with people that I wouldn't starve with, you know. So that's my
yes.
That's when it comes to friendship, when it comes to people I'm legitimately close to, they know who they are. And they know if it ever does financially, if ever do truly financially succeed, they're the ones that will benefit from that too. Because a lot of people sort of only start to show up when a lot of people think you're mental, and a lot of people think you're crazy, and a lot of people love to talk about you until they start to realize that it's working. And then the panic kicks in and they start to realize like, oh shit, I better start talking to this guy a little bit more. I better start being a little bit more friendly to him because I don't know where he's going to be in 2 years, 3 years. When success is a funny way of changing people, but not sometimes it's not you. You know, sometimes it's the ones around you.
Absolutely. There's a few avenues that I want to explore and go
Yeah,
down.
please, man. I've got all night.
One of the things that I'm thinking about is you spoke about anxiety and how that gripped you.
Yeah.
From how old were you?
Ooh, that's a great question.
And how did you know what it was, or when did you know?
Yeah, that's it. That's where it gets complicated, because when does it stop becoming nerves? Do you know when somebody says something to you like, oh, you're just nervous? Remember, like anxiety wasn't a thing I figured out until I was like 16. You know, kids nowadays, like, you know, a lot of kids these days know what anxiety is when they're like fucking 5. You know what I mean?
Really,
like for us, like, anxiety didn't like, not that it didn't exist. For us, depression and anxiety, depression particularly, was something that was an actual like serious. Like, it isn't that it isn't serious nowadays. But what I mean is, like, it was as if you had if somebody told you they were depressed, it was as if they just told you they had cancer. You know, like back 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Like, you didn't have, like, that was something that you used to always think, like, they need medical help for, you know, not realizing that everybody was kind of going through it, you know?
Was that hidden away then by most people?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. I think people cope in funny ways. And people try and disguise their pains and their sufferings in funny ways. And it often comes across in things like, it can come across in things like addiction, and it come across in things like, you know, like violence and things like that there, and like, you know, crime. 100%. But I think there's another version of it, where people just wither. People just start to, the things that they laughed at a year ago, they don't laugh at anymore. They don't have the same spark. You know, their skin's a bit grayer. You know, they may not ever turn to things like drinking or drugs or whatever, but like, I think men shrink themselves sometimes to the size of what other people can handle. We do that a lot as men. You know, we don't like when it comes to standing out, when it comes to trying to do something a bit different, a lot of the time we just shrink ourselves because we're equally as afraid of what other people think of us. You know, like we just never say fuck all. You know what I mean? With people, with the other side, with women and all the rest, I think they have a beautiful way of communicating with each other where they can say things like, "Oh, I'm so anxious about what this person thinks of me," you know. But you rarely hear that from a guy. You rarely hear from a guy saying something like, "Oh God, if I do this, my friends are going to think I'm weird," or "Oh my God, I'm a complete, you know, idiot for thinking this way," or whatever. I don't think guys have the same connection pathways that we should do. But I also think that the way that it's talked about is slightly off. Not wrong, but just slightly off.
Unpick that for me.
I think that, like, we're made to talk about our feelings. Not made, sorry. We're asked to talk about our feelings. We're asked to talk about the way that we, especially professionally, or you see it a lot online too. You see a lot of guys talking about, like, you know, maybe having a breakdown or having something that they think. And that's that. Listen, there's nothing wrong with that. You should be able to express yourself exactly how you feel. And even regardless of how that forms, you should be able to talk about how you feel. But this is something that I'm thinking about recently. Most people are band-aids when what we really need are people to be medicine.
Yeah.
I think a band-aid is somebody who will tell you it's going to be okay, Yanka, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And, you know, like, let me hear what you have to say for the next hour, and that'll be it. You know what I mean? We'll wrap up what's wrong with you, and then we'll not ever bring it up again. But medicine is somebody who will sit down with you and go, right, you fucked up. You know what I mean? Things are going wrong, and you fucked up, and it's okay. You know, here's the bad things that might happen next. But I'm going to come back to you tomorrow, and I'm going to come back to you the next day, and the next day, and next week, and I'm going to keep checking up on you until I know that you're okay. That's medicine. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Most people are band-aids. I try my best to be medicine. So I'm okay with hurting people's feelings in the short term if it's going to help them in the long, you know?
So what I'm hearing there is it's about the intent. If you're there to support somebody, it's about the intent. It's not about sugarcoating something and say, "Ooh, how you feeling about this, that, and the other." It's about being upfront, open, and honest.
Yeah. It's like, and sometimes it's not just that. Sometimes it can be something like, you know, a guy goes through a breakup. Most guys want to take them out for a drink. That's a band-aid. Instead of sitting down and going, okay, well, where did it go wrong? What happened? You know, where's your head at right now? Do you miss them? You know, is it something that you feel like you can get back? And really, is it something you want to get back? You know, because for the last 6 months you haven't been yourself, you know? And then it's having that conversation with them where you're not trying, because I think most people try and tell people what they think the right answer is, when realistic, when what I've figured out recently is that, like, nobody has a fucking clue, man. Nobody. Like, I can't tell, like, people try and tell me how to navigate comedy that aren't comedians. You know, it's like me trying to tell you how to analyze somebody, you know, when I have no clue about psychology. It's the same thing. You can't diagnose an issue that you don't have the analysis on, you know? But for people like that, I just think sitting down with your friend or whoever it is, it could be family member, whoever it is, sitting down with them and having that real conversation with them. It doesn't matter how long you have to stay with them to know that they're okay, just to stay with them for that moment, because that can save lives quicker than you think. Knowing that somebody's not just a band-aid, knowing that somebody's really there, you know.
You spoke before we started recording about going to see a therapist and that.
Yeah, counselor, yeah.
Yeah. How old were you? When did you realize, or had you been putting it off for a long time?
No, I had to go. I had to go.
You had to go?
Yeah. I had 19, I think it all got to me real bad. You know, and I had a real rough run of it. I had a real bad breakup with a girl. I felt pretty hopeless, and I felt like there wasn't really too much to go. It wasn't just because of the girl, but there was a lot going on at the time. And I just felt like I didn't have a whole lot left to give. I felt like my whole life I'd spent giving away everything that I had inside myself. You know, I was always trying to be helpful to people. I was always trying to be good with friendships. I was always that almost too intense friends that gets hang out every, you know, when I was younger, I was always like, let's hang out every day. You know, I'll sacrifice whatever I have to do in order to make sure that you're happy. And I was a one sort of really bad abusive relationship that kind of tipped me over the edge, you know. And then I got to that really dark point. You know, I was in university and I just got real low. And yeah. After that, let's just say I had to go and see some counseling. I had to go.
Okay, and when you use words like you were at that dark point, etc.,
Yeah.
I'm going to make the assumption that you were contemplating suicide.
Yeah, big time. People get it wrong, man. I think sometimes I tried to define this to somebody recently, and they never really got it. People who have never reached the bottom or the edge of the cliff, it doesn't just like, you know, you don't just have a moment and then it ends. A lot of people think that people have this mad revelation that like all life is 100% again, like everyone's going to be good and I shouldn't have done that and everything. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people think that and then don't realize that like there's a whole month after that, a whole 3 months after that, or 6 months after that. You're still there. You know what I mean? You don't tell nobody and you're trying small parts of you. There's a little tiny, maybe a little spark, just a little tiny bit of you that's kind of like, maybe I'll go on. Maybe I'll just take it the next day, you know? But there's a little tiny, just that little tiny spark's the only thing that'll maybe get you through. But you can't do that by yourself most of the time. Most of the time, you really do need somebody to talk to who isn't your friend or somebody who put you in that situation. And sometimes you have nobody. So sometimes you really do need that professional help, you know?
John, did you access support within the university?
Yeah, I had no access within the university.
And when you reached that point, how did it feel effectively putting your hand up and saying, help?
It was that was scary. That was a scary one.
Talk to me about that.
I think another part of it growing up over here is that like you kind of have to do it yourself. You know, a lot of it you have to do yourself, like your own mind. You have to figure it out, and that's a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong. I think that if you can channel that correctly, it's the most wonderful thing. See, self-belief is the inverse. It's the reverse of anxiety.
It is, but if you don't have the skills,
yeah, that's it.
So this is prior to that. How do you know where to go?
Exactly. It's a bit like fumbling around in the dark, trying to pick up pieces of yourself after a terrible incident. And I realized, I think I got to the point when the mental pain, when the mental sort of torture of it all outweighs your fear of doing something, that's when you need to make a change, you know? So I think I got to the point where I didn't want to feel that way anymore. Talked to a lot of addicts in my life. I talked to a lot of people who have addictive problems. And it's not comparable by any standard, but I felt relatability to what they were saying compared to what I was saying, is that when they decided they were going to come off whatever they were addicted to, there was a moment where they kind of thought to themselves, I can't live this way anymore, so I need to get help, you know? And it was the same for myself. I just had to take a moment and figure out. I couldn't figure out the next step myself, so I knew logically I had to talk to somebody. And then I can't remember what it was. It was just a leaflet or something that I had lying around the house from a freshers week, and one of the things on it was counseling. So the week after that, I went and I got seen to. I did about 6-7 sessions of it, and it was near the end of the year anyway. It was near the end of the university year, but those 6 or 7 sessions really did help. You know, really did sort of put me in the right path again. So I do recommend it. Jesus, I recommend it to anybody who's struggling, you know.
I mean, I'm just thinking about any students who listen to this, who may come across this. I'm just thinking about, you've kept that leaflet from Freshers Week.
Yeah.
It's coming up to October, November time.
Yeah.
And you're on the precipice.
Mm-hmm. And
you just think, I can't continue.
Mm-hmm. And it happens, you know, I never try to glorify that. I never try to glorify that part of my life.
Okay. Maybe glorification's not the word, but there's something do you talk about it in terms of in terms of the content that you put out? Do you let people know that? Not
If I
yet.
said it to you this way, comedy's like writing, or it's like a skill. You're always on a line, so there's a line you can't cross, but you're on an up and down constantly you're just trying to touch that line. I
It's
haven't figured out the correct way to tell a joke like that isn't
it's
going to
it's
hurt people.
okay. It's interesting you
Mhm.
saying that because one of the first recordings we did was with a comedian called Jim from
Mhm.
America,
Yeah.
and we spoke about going around America, having to stay in hotels, particularly during the winter months, and he experienced seasonal affective disorder, and
Yeah.
at times he was suicidal,
Mhm.
and he would say that he actually said on the podcast that he's never spoke about having these suicidal thoughts,
Mhm.
and he challenged himself because he felt that maybe I need to incorporate that in my script. Feels like you're doing the same as well,
Mhm.
trying to figure out when and
Aye,
is the
it's
most appropriate moment. In Northern Ireland, the incidences of
uh
suicide are
yeah.
possibly the highest
Mhm.
across the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
They're the highest.
Yeah. And I know why. Do you know what I mean? It's a frustrating thing for somebody like myself. What a lot of people don't know, I can't talk about it too much, but what a lot of people don't know about myself as a comedian, I do that during the night. During the day, I work in education. So I can't talk about it too much, but with
No,
that, I deal with a lot of young kids, like young men, who are going through the same thing. I think all this started because a part of this started was because prior to what I did 3 years ago, I was the epitome of average. You know what I mean? I never stepped out. I never stepped out of line. I wasn't funny. I was never funny. I never thought to myself anything further than what I was doing at the time. I never had any dreams or goals or aspirations or anything that I thought, God, if I just stepped out and I tried that, I could be the best version of myself doing that. Never had that. And I remember I had a kid who told me just before lockdown hit, he was feeling a real certain day in a bad way. And I remember having a conversation with him. I tried to motivate him. And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, How do you know though? How do you know though? And that hit me harder than anything else. I have the answer to that question now. You know, I have the answer to that question now. So if I talk to a couple of ones, if I talk to a couple of kids who are going through some tough times, I can't tell them exactly how they're going to get out of it, but I can show them that if you take a different, more narrow path, something that's worse, something that feels worse at the time, but it's going to feel 10 times better at the end, um, that's the way out. When you feel it's not everybody. Some people are born to be doctors and psychiatrists and mechanics and all the things that the world needs. But there is a small group of people who are always lost, who end up just like myself, who believe that they're average, who believe that they've got nothing going for them. Do you know what I hear more than anything else when you ask a kid what they want to be when they grow up? I don't know. I don't know. I love that. I love that more than anything else in the world.
tell
Because
me
that
why.
means that they're malleable enough that if you have the right conversation with them,
Yes,
you can teach
anything
them
is
that they need to
possible.
try everything before they're
Absolutely,
dead. You know,
absolutely.
so like there's a great quote. I live by this one now more than anything else. But when the Reaper comes, ensure he finds you conquering a new mountain. So don't let it never stops, never stop. Like it doesn't matter what the if you could like people keep like I keep telling people unrealistic things in life, and I do it for a point. So when I had 10,000, I had a couple of ones come up to me and be like, "Oh, my, but that's crazy and that's mental and all the rest." But like, where are you going to be like next year? I told them 50,000. I had no comprehension of that. They didn't believe it either, but it just sort of happened, to that way. And then now I'm telling people like, I've only started stand-up comedy. I've only really done a handful of them so far. But I've been telling people that like by a certain year, I'll sell out Northern Ireland's, biggest stadium.
I've got no doubts about that.
Yeah, and I've got a really weird
I've got
belief
no doubts
that,
about
like,
that.
not because I believe in any way I can do it or any way that I'm better than anybody, but I just know that if I tell them, because what I'll lead on to that and tell them after that, it's like, okay, but see the moment you hear me do that, see the moment you hear that I've done that, I want you to chase something too. So what that does is hold me accountable to that, because then it doesn't just become about me. I think sometimes your why, the reason you do any of this sort of stuff has to be far more important than something material like money.
Absolutely.
And that's why when people ask me about numbers, or you said about it earlier, like, how the numbers make you feel, they don't make me feel anything. But knowing that I've got something that I can use to help people in a small way, using that I can turn around and tell a kid. Because how many other people could, in my small, very small town, there isn't any other people like me.
There's only you.
What I mean is, like, nobody else has tried the thing that I've tried. So when I'm able to have that conversation, I get to remind them that, like, they knew me 3 years ago and I was average. It just took a little push into the doing part of it instead of thinking about it. Do the thing first and then think about it after. Everyone gets that bit wrong. Self-belief is the reverse of anxiety. So anxiety gives you 1,000 options. There are 1,000 things that can happen to you that never happen, that can never ever happen. That one of them might come true, and it's usually not as bad as you think it is, but you're convinced that the absolute worst scenario is going to take place and you're crippled by it. Self-belief is the inverse of that. It gives you 1,000 opportunities and things that you could do, and it gives you just that little inkling that it's possible.
Tim, are you writing all this down for me?
I'm scribbling away, don't you worry. Please carry on.
Yeah, that's my philosophy, I guess.
I just want to stay on this point a little bit.
Yeah, you're going ahead, but
You've been bereaved and or affected by suicide yourself personally?
Yeah, I'll be careful with this one. I've been bereaved by the attempts of suicide. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, it does.
I haven't lost anybody yet, but I've been in the battle with them.
How's that been for you?
Ooh. Tough.
Why tough?
It's a bit like you think you know everything that's going on with somebody. You know them better than anybody else. And sometimes you can underestimate that, and how far somebody's willing to hide how bad things have gotten for them, Sometimes you can have a conversation with somebody and the next day they may be in hospital, There can be a lot of distrust within yourself, or a lot of questioning yourself about how much you could have or should have done when there's nothing you could have done.
You know that now?
I know that now.
Okay.
Yeah. But at the time, though, there's a lot of like, I could have done better. I should have done better. I need to do more, but when the actual truth is that, like, that event was going to happen, even if I was in the house,
regardless,
even if I was with them, but it teaches you something valuable too. It teaches you the importance of being able to communicate with somebody effectively. Like I said earlier about being medicine rather than being a band-aid. Because I think if you spend long enough being somebody who just wants to cover up somebody's problem, you'll soon find yourself questioning how much you really should have done if you're faced with an opportunity like that, It's a very intense feeling, but it teaches you a really important lesson about pain and about somebody else's pain, and how you really should be communicating with people, and how you should learn to communicate with people effectively. But I'm happy to say that I haven't lost anyone, as much as I've been close.
Why do I feel that you've, given your tender age of 29, you've already got a book in you, at least for now, of your life experiences? What it feels like?
It would be a pretty dyslexic book, It'd be fairly hard to understand. In 500 years, you could take that book and somebody would study it, like, like Nostradamus or something, I'd be predicting stock markets or something, but It would be interesting, man. Yeah, I think I don't think that far ahead. I was explaining this to a friend recently. I don't know how to define it. This one I'm going to leave to the psychoanalysts out there because I can't actually define this one. I've been sitting down and thinking about it. And I know you're going to ask about it, but I don't have an answer. But I have this theory that like I'll die before a certain age. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. I don't know. I can't sort of figure it out. But what I'm finding more and more is that with the things that I'm doing now and the things that I'm pushing myself into and all the anxieties that I have to face and turning around and facing those demons and facing the things that I have to fight now, I'm giving myself more time on earth. I don't know what it is. That's the best way I can describe it. It's like at one point I felt like I was going to die. Like that was it. Like I gave myself 10 years, you know. This is way back before I started. And every time I do something different or do something very, very unique, I give myself more time because I feel like I've got more to prove. Not, by the way, that any of this is going to be like a self-inflicted thing. Do you get what I mean? None of that.
Yeah.
None of that.
Yeah.
It's a weird existential thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately. But with every big step that I take, I think I never was afraid of dying.
You were never afraid of dying?
No, but now I'm like, it's not so much a fear. It's I can't die yet. I've got too much to do.
Good.
I've got way too much to prove. You know, I've got way too much to show up for. You know?
Good.
And I think that's it. I think it's tough. I think life's tough. I think a lot of people know that. And sometimes I don't think it's as simple as saying so. I think people focus way too much on looking at a big picture. Like I said earlier about fear being a mile wide, but an inch deep. I think everyone looks forward, way too far forward, and it becomes completely overwhelming. There's something beautiful in telling myself not to give up just for the day. And that can be to do with content or life or anything. Because it is tough. It is tough. See, chasing, that's why most people don't do it. Like, most people will look at the big thing and then stop because it's just too much. Like, they look at it, like, imagine, for me, it's hard to, for me, sometimes I have a weird brain. Sometimes it's hard for me to comprehend that people can look at something so magnificent and tell themselves there's too many steps for me to walk,
Yes.
you know, to something like, God, it hurts. It hurts me so much to see people who have started a vision or started a dream or started something that they've done and then they give up. It's like you were so close. You were so close to the goal. You know, you were so close to the thing that you really wanted. And it hurts. It hurts to see that. It's the thing that keeps me going. Because I stopped looking at things like, woe was me, and I feel sorry for myself. And I started looking at it like, every day that I don't give up is a day I made it further than most people who did.
I used to saying, how do you eat an elephant? A little bit at a time.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And realizing that failure is the key. It's gonna open your mind to things that you never thought possible.
Do you think that's a UK mindset?
I don't know.
And the reason why I'm saying that is my background used to be in community development.
Yeah.
And people used to talk about wanting to set up businesses. And they'd have 1 go, 2 go, 3 goes at a business. Yeah. And then if they weren't successful, they'd give it up. But if you go across the pond to the States, they may be on their 10th venture and they'll say, the next one's going to be a success because I'm going to use the knowledge that I've accumulated from the previous 10 failures.
I think it's not at the fault of the people who are trying. I think it's the fault of the people around them. Because what we do, there's two things that come from that. We love to support, especially in Northern Ireland, right? This is a big one. We love to support people who are growing. We love to, like, if you ever find Irish, Northern Irish, whatever you want to call it. I always look at Conor McGregor as a good example, the UFC fighter. When he blew up, when things were going really, really well for him, he had the entire thousands of people travel to America to support him. We are the most supportive people.
Yeah.
Except for when you succeed.
Yes.
That's when it switches. Because people start to hate. People stop looking at you and start looking at the reflection in the mirror and be like, oh God, like, how could he do this? Like, I can't, I can't do what he did. So therefore, instead of trying it, I have to tear it. Not that I have to tear that person down, but it is that I have to try start tearing that down. And what you'll find is that like people will find a minor amount of success. It could be a business, it could be whatever, and it starts to kick off and things are going really well and everybody's supporting of them. And then the moment that it goes too far, or a person has a new car or a new house and the things that are going really well for them, the moment that happens, immediately people start going, oh, well, he's too good for us now. He's no longer the homegrown hero. He's changed, and he's no longer the person that we believed in. And then that failure hits you were talking about, that thing that because everyone has it. And what it does is it just backs up the false narrative that other people have created for you. So It becomes like you start to say to yourself, like, oh, fuck, people were right. Like I was too big for my boots and I should have just humbled myself and brought myself back down to a certain level and all the rest. And then you're back to square one, you're back to just trying to get along with everybody else. Because as I said before, men, particularly men, shrink themselves to the size of what other people can handle. And they refuse to make themselves bigger than what they are. My advice is just go against the grain. Start making it about you versus you, not about everybody else. Because that's how you win. And the truth is, the word's so forgetful. There's nothing you're going to fuck up on by putting out a shit video or putting out a shit idea.
Shit podcast or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. But like, nobody cares about it until they care about it.
Yes.
And that's the truth.
Interesting.
And one of the most beautiful stories I've heard recently is a comedian who came up to me and he told me that he's 53. He told me he started comedy at 51 after his brother died. And he told me that that was it. He knew a version of him had to go and another version had to take its place. Because that's who you had to become. I love that.
Crossroads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was his crossroad moment.
John, who's the most important person in your life?
Ooh.
You can only pick one person.
I can only pick one person?
Yeah.
The element of the question is a strange thing. I could say my partner, my girlfriend, my thing. I've been with her for 9 years. We've been knowing each other since she's 21, and she's the only one that she stuck it out. See, go through all of it, through the worst bits. It wasn't me that had to suffer in those moments. It was her, and in all terms of it and everything that I had to go through, she was the one that really had to be the supportive angle when things weren't going right. The favor of one, I define it as. Sometimes that's all you need. The favor of one. You don't need fucking 100,000 people to like you. You need the favor of one to get you through anything.
Who are you going to say?
To answer that existentially, though, my favorite person right now is...
The most important person in your life.
The most important person to me right now is me.
Okay. Tim and I are doing a tally. Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
You're the expert of you. You know what makes yourself happy. You know what makes yourself sad.
Yeah.
And only by attending to your needs can you be fully there for the people, such as your girlfriend, who means so much.
That's exactly it. Like I said, that concept of self-belief spreads out. And if you can't find the version of you that you actually like, there isn't any point in trying to be bigger, because you'll always have a shadow that's going to be able to say things that are going to hurt more than the reward of trying something bigger. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if you can push yourself past the negative,
yes,
you can achieve things that everyone else thinks that you can't achieve. I love that. I dare people to tell me that I can't do something because I know that I can.
Brilliant. John Devlin.
Yeah.
You have been an excellent guest on the podcast.
Thank you, brother.
So, John, you've weathered the Hurt Locker. What has the experience been like for you?
Yeah, man, it's been eye-opening. I love for somebody who is coming from somewhere like Northern Ireland, And for everybody who's from Northern Ireland, we're not great at fucking talking about our emotions. You know what I mean? We're fucking shit at talking about our emotions. So I highly recommend coming and checking out the Hurt Locker. They're great fucking guys. You know what I mean? And for something like male mental health, it's not something you're going to hear me fucking talking about often, you know, as a comedian. So if you're looking for a unique perspective on life, come on over and give it a wee shot, give them a wee follow, you know. Follow us, follow these guys at the Hurt Locker pod, you know. Great guys.
Thank you, John Devlin. Cheers.
You got it, brother, you got it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.